How we doing? Cody Rhodes finished his story. Aren't we happy? Welcome to a very special, I don't know what the hell we're calling this, WFAN YouTube reaction to WrestleMania 40. Cody Rhodes has finished his story by beating Roman Reigns. And I got to admit, I was very sad at the end of this. I think I was still holding out hope that they would book Roman Reigns to win. He would retain his title. He would knock off Hulk Hogan's record. He would defend it next year at 41. And Roman would continue what has been one of the greatest title runs of all time for another year. But listen, the kids and the Cody crybabies got what they wanted. Cody finished his story. He's the new WWE champion. And I give it, what do you want to say, a month before people are sick of him? I'll go 2 months. Want to give him till SummerSlam, maybe? Before people are like, why are we cheering this guy? I'm just kidding. The kids love Cody Rhodes. They're very, very excited that he won. And look, I think honestly, with the way things have been booked over the last year and a half, they probably made the right decision. As much as maybe I'm selfish and I wouldn't have minded another year out of Roman Reigns, I get it. I get it. This was the moment. This was the time. And since Roman became champion and this bloodline thing took off and this renaissance of Roman Reigns was doing so well, I think we all figured, all right, well, how the hell is he going to lose the title? And who's he going to lose the title to? And I never thought a year ago Cody Rhodes was the right answer. I know a lot of people were pissed off by how that match ended and how that was booked with Solo screwing him and all that. And the fact that Roman's been part-time and the title could have had more prestige over the last year. But the truth is, this was better. It really was. Cody chasing for another year turned out to be better. You throw in the crap with The Rock, you throw that stuff in there. I think the WWE gave you that climax, that giant end to a story that everybody overbooked WrestleMania main events of all time. But I'm not saying that in a bad way. Like, honestly, Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns having a straight wrestling match for the second consecutive year and Cody just beating him, wouldn't have done it. Like, they needed this overbooked spectacular. And it made a lot of sense, you know? And I was sitting there with my son, Jed, who's a big Stone Cold Steve Austin fan, because that's the beauty of the WWE Network. You can watch all these old wrestlers and become real fans of them. And we were waiting for Stone Cold because Stone Cold seemed to make the most sense. Like The Undertaker showing up. I know that got a huge pop in Philadelphia, but they're dummies anyway. It didn't even make any sense. Like that part was, it was cool, but it didn't really fit. Like The Undertaker and The Rock don't have this incredible long history. They don't have this great rivalry. In fact, whenever The Undertaker and The Rock fought, they always had disjointed matches. Like they never had, they're two iconic figures, and they were two iconic figures in the Attitude Era. But does anybody really have a classic Rock Undertaker match? So the way they booked that main event with the craziness between Roman and Cody, awesome. Like it was a good match. It was crazy. They fight on the outside. You got tables involved. You had a lot of good stuff. You have each one sharing their finishing move, which kind of harkens back to the Attitude days when Stone Cold and The Rock would trade off stunners and rock bottoms. So that part was fine. Jey Uso stopping Jimmy Uso, perfect. Solo comes out, stopped by John Cena. Perfect storyline considering Solo knocked John Cena out months and months ago. It's almost like Cena coming back for that mini running ad this year. All made sense. And it was literally all for this moment. The Rock coming out and you getting that stare down between Cena and The Rock, badass. Like that was tremendous considering that rivalry is more than a decade old. And, you know, you knew John couldn't do much because I think he's filming a movie. So to him kind of go right into a punch into a rock bottom made perfect sense. But at that moment, and the Seth Rollins thing was a waste. I got to tell you, like if you're going to have the Shield music come out, unless John Moxley's making a surprise appearance, which I know he can't, don't play the Shield music. You got one freaking guy. Roman Reigns is obviously not in the Shield anymore. So it's literally just for Seth Rollins. So he puts his hairdo out like it's 2015, 2014. That didn't make any sense. That wasn't necessary. But when The Rock is standing in the ring and someone needs to stop The Rock, there's only one guy. If we're being honest. And it ain't The Undertaker. I'm sorry. It's Stone Cold Steve Austin. So I'm sure that story will come out on why Austin didn't want to do it and didn't want to get involved, even though 2 years ago he was sitting there main eventing a Saturday night against Kevin Owens. So obviously it's not like he hasn't worked in 21 years. That would have been, I think that would have taken a main event that really was an 8.5 out of 10. I'd give it that, or a 9 out of 10, however you want to rate it. Despite my own, hey, I'd love for Roman to win. I'm also not an idiot. I know it made sense for Roman to lose, and they booked it the right way. That was just the one critique I would give it. The one critique would be Undertaker did not make as much sense as Stone Cold Steve Austin. But I love the idea that this title reign ended with iconic figures through history putting an end to the shenanigans we've watched for the last year and a half plus. Because really the first half of Roman's title reign wasn't filled with that many shenanigans. This is more like a last year and a half thing dating back to the Drew McIntyre victory. So I think they booked it well, and it gave the people what they want. The big step's going to be, what the hell are you doing next? They didn't really further Rock Roman, which we all assume we're getting at WrestleMania 41, despite in the tag match, you had Roman accidentally spearing The Rock, but it didn't look like The Rock was upset. Like, they didn't do anything to kind of further that story. But they gave you the win with Cody Rhodes. I thought it was a very good main event. It was well done. It was long. But what I liked is that they started it early enough. Because I think one of the critiques of night one is that it felt like it was going forever. And when that match, that tag team match finally ended, I don't even know what time it was, but it was exhausting. And you could hear it from the crowd. Like, the crowd for night two of WrestleMania was a lot better. It was more into it. It was a very different crowd because it felt like night one gave Cody and Seth a very mixed reaction and gave The Rock a mixed reaction. Tonight was a very traditional, Cody's the baby face, The Rock's a bad guy, and the crowd was hot the entire night. And I think a part of what helped was that it wasn't as long of a night. There weren't as many matches. You didn't feel exhausted by the time that main event started. That main event started before 10 o'clock, or at least right around that. So the crowd was into it. Night two is a lot better than night one. Honestly, I don't think night one was that good. Like, think back to night one. Jimmy Uso versus Jey Uso was as disappointing a match as you could have. I don't remember where they did this, but I think the first time Jeff Hardy fought Matt Hardy, like back in 2001 or 2002, they had a clunker, and it sucked. And I didn't understand it. And I don't know if it's because they're brothers. I have no idea why they wouldn't have a good match together. But Jimmy and Jey Uso had a terrible match. I don't think it was very good. And maybe they'll book a rematch. Maybe they'll continue that feud and they'll give us a better match. But both those guys are great performers. We've seen them as great tag team wrestlers for so long. So the Jimmy and Jey Uso match was not very good. The 6-man women's match, it was all right. The Sami Zayn Gunther thing was probably the best thing night one had to offer. And I wasn't sure if Sami Zayn, who, as I look at myself in the camera right now, I guess I am resembling Sami Zayn a little bit. My hair is not quite as long. Do I look like Sami Zayn, Jet? Kind of. I got a kind of from my man. I'm kind of being Sami Zayn, but I thought that match, and with Gunther kind of, getting cocky at the end and talking to Sami Zayn's wife, it was probably the perfect way for Gunther's Intercontinental title reign to end. And you know what? It's perfect because when you think about it, who is Cody going to face over the next 4, 5, 6, 7 months? Who are some of the heels he's going to have to face? Gunther's the perfect guy. And ever since they had their Royal Rumble encounter a year ago, it looked like, boy, that'd be a great match. But that match would never have made sense. Cody Rhodes, in the midst of trying to finish his story, fighting for the Intercontinental Championship, a title he won the first time around he was here, it just would have been like a clunky, it would have been more clunky than him becoming tag champion with Jey Uso. So now that you've got the IC title belt off Gunther, and he's still incredibly strong despite one loss, that's a good opponent. That's a good feud. Very good feud. But night one's obviously we were focused on the main event, getting to see The Rock back in the ring. The Rock's intro was just ridiculously awesome. The intros, though, for both, all 4 competitors in that tag team match took about an hour and a half. And by that point in the night, I know it's a Saturday night, but can they get their butts in the ring? And can we have a match? Like, can we move this freaking thing along? And then that match, I'll tell you, the main event of night one is so peculiar because the first 15 minutes of it was boring as hell. It wasn't any good. And then I'd say the last 20 minutes of the match, because I don't know how long they timed that match out, but man, it was forever. The last half of it was wild, was very good. You had that spot where The Rock's taking a rock bottom from Cody Rhodes into the announce table. So not only is The Rock coming back and wrestling, but he's taking some major freaking bumps, which I thought was very cool. And then simultaneously, Roman is spearing Seth Rollins. So there was some great kind of moments over the last 10 minutes. And then they booked the ending perfectly. They booked the ending, which unfortunately tells you what was going to happen in night two. But the truth is, everybody knew what was going to happen in night two. So you can't get nuts about that. I mean, there was no way Cody and Seth were going to win that tag team match, and we were just going to have like a straight up one-on-one match between Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes. And then if guys interfere when it's supposed to be a straight up one-on-one match, then the whole night one main event would have been a waste of time, because what the hell was the point of the stipulation? You're going to have a stipulation, then you're going to have interference anyway. So you knew Roman and Rock were going to have to win, and it was perfect to have The Rock get the pinfall over Cody Rhodes. Why, you ask? Because if The Rock is really wrestling and he's really telling us a story, man, and this wasn't just a 2-month run to WrestleMania and I'll show up once or twice and then we'll get Rock Roman at WrestleMania 41. Like, if he's going to be somewhat involved, I'm not saying every week, but somewhat involved, maybe even on the Roman Reigns schedule from last year, then this sets up beautifully for Cody Rhodes to face The Rock at SummerSlam this upcoming year. Makes perfect sense because The Rock beat him. You know, if we're talking kayfabe here, The Rock beat Cody Rhodes. So he deserves a match. He deserves a title match against Cody. And that is a money match, considering the buildup to WrestleMania at times became more about Rock versus Cody than even Roman. To have them in a straight up one-on-one feud going into SummerSlam, if that's the event you want to do it at, you want to do it at Survivor Series, you want to do it at Royal Rumble, I guess. SummerSlam seems to make the most sense. That would be the match to have. And having The Rock pin Cody Rhodes, perfect. I don't think there was any other combination that would have made sense. You can't have Seth Rollins get pinned because, let's face it, Seth was never really that involved in the story anyways, a third party. And we'll get to Seth in a second on that world title match because that was quite a way to start night two. But I thought that main event of night one is a tough match to judge because the first half of it was historically boring, and the second half of it was pretty good. Good bumps, crazy bumps, perfect ending with The Rock getting the people's elbow into pinning Cody Rhodes after Roman, spears him, and he takes the belt shots and all that crap. I thought it was a good conclusion to that main event. Now, as far as night two's other matches are concerned, Bayley gets the win, although that was a very good match. She had to win. I think we all knew that was coming. Logan Paul defending the U.S. title. I don't know. I mean, he's not there enough, to be honest with you. He doesn't fight enough. But I thought that was predictable, considering Kevin Owens and Randy Orton were on the same side. Kind of knew they'd cancel each other out, and Paul would defend the U.S. Championship. The Philadelphia Street fight with Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits against the New Testament, the Final Testament, the Old Testament, whatever testament it was fine. It was fine. Fine filler. But that first match, man, that was a very good match. The fact that right out of the gate, you had finishes galore. Right out the gate, you got McIntyre doing his Claymore kick, Seth doing stomps. I did think for a quick second when he Claymored him right out of the gate, I'm like, oh man, are we getting Sheamus Daniel Bryan from WrestleMania 28? That 7-second match. Can you imagine that? But I think we all knew the belt's coming off Seth. Because here's the problem. I love long title runs. I mean, the Roman title run was incredible. Obviously, we just saw that IC title run by Gunther. The problem with Seth Rollins' really, really long world title run is that he's the inaugural champion. So you kind of have to have a few guys get their hands on that title. I like long title runs, but there's something weird about the first champion lasting as long as Seth did, over 300 days. So very good match. McIntyre beats him, and Jet and I are sitting there waiting for the cash in because they had to cash in. Damian Priest has been sitting there with this briefcase for 8 months. He never gets to cash it in. He teases it a million times. He doesn't feel like a world champion to me. But you know what? Become world champion. Then you'll feel like a world champion. And this was the perfect time to do it because you put it on a big stage. You do this on Monday Night Raw. You do this on a B show pay-per-view. I don't know. I think then Damian Priest would remain kind of a B-level champion. But to do it the way they did it, with CM Punk getting physical against McIntyre, with Priest becoming champion right out the gate, I don't know. I thought it was a hot way to start it. And I think it actually builds Priest in the right way, despite the fact that, what did he actually do? McIntyre had this long match. Then he gets beat up by CM Punk. But I thought it was better for Damian Priest to have a cash-in at WrestleMania. We don't get cash-ins at WrestleMania. We have Seth Rollins. That's it. I think Seth Rollins cashing in at the end of WrestleMania 31 is basically the only one we got. So that was a very good way to start the show. Hot way to start the show. Strong way to start the show. LA Knight beating AJ Styles. It was whatever. It was a fine match. Very, very predictable. So overall, I thought WrestleMania Night 2 was a lot better than Night 1. Overall, I thought the show was pretty good. I always say this about WrestleManias. I think that, to me at least, you remember them based on the main event and how that main event went. I think back to WrestleMania 25. WrestleMania 25 had the worst main event of all time. Triple H and Randy Orton, that plotting match. And so you may think about Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, but if Undertaker, Shawn Michaels main events that show, and that's how the show ends, at least me, I have a better view of WrestleMania 25. So I think the main event really defines it. And this main event was very, very good. And it leads to a lot of questions. Question number one, how sick do we get of Cody Rhodes and how quickly? Is this going to be a guy that the people turn on? It's on the table. And Cody's got that personality where I don't think he works when people turn on him. When John Cena got turned on, it could still work. Even when Roman Reigns got turned on for all those years, he could somehow morph a little bit into a heel. I'm not sure Cody Rhodes would do that. We saw that in AEW. It just never happened. So, A, will the crowd turn on Cody Rhodes? And if they do, how quickly will it be? Number two, who's his first feud? Like, we're not getting Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns, the rematch. We're not getting that. We're not getting Cody Rhodes versus The Rock right away. You're telling me Cody Rhodes solo Sikoa? I wouldn't do that at all. I'd move away from that immediately. But he needs a strong kind of initial rival. And I give you one off the top that's a little different, a little creative. Right off the top, Seth Rollins. Now, they had a good feud back in the day. They've had some very good matches. Seth just lost his world championship to Drew McIntyre. Seth did all this help for Cody Rhodes. How about he comes out and says, you know what? You owe me something. I helped you. Even though, what did I really help you do? We lost the freaking tag team match. And when I showed up to help you out in the main event, I got no offense in. I immediately got attacked. But whatever. You owe me, Cody. I want the first crack at that championship. I don't know. It's a little different. Wouldn't see it coming. So that's question number two. Question number three, the bloodline. What happens? Are we going to see Paul Heyman disappear? Like, we know Roman's going to disappear, and I think it's best for Roman Reigns to disappear for a while. Sometimes you lose the main event at WrestleMania. You got to go away for a long time. Bret Hart did it right after WrestleMania 12. He was gone for like 9 months or whatever it was, till he came back at Survivor Series and fought Stone Cold. Okay, so Roman disappears. What about The Rock? What I think they should do with The Rock, if he's able to, and I know he's not going to be at every SmackDown, I think he's got to remain an on-air character as the leader of the bloodline. I think Roman disappears. He lost the title. He needs a break. And The Rock becomes the de facto leader. And that could lead to the tension that we then get between Rock and Roman, that when Roman comes back, whenever that is, he gets this massive face pop. And when we get Roman Reigns against The Rock at 41, we get The Rock as a heel. We get Roman as the face. It's the only way to go. And I know Roman as a face feels weird because we never liked Roman as a face. But I think he can be this bloodline-ish, heelish face upon his return. But what happens to the bloodline? If The Rock's not going to work any dates, what is Jimmy Uso doing? What is Solo doing? What's Paul Heyman doing? That's question number 4. I don't know. I don't even know what question I'm up to. And then Damian Priest, how are you going to book him as a world champion? He's been a mid-carder forever. Who's his first feud? Does he feud with Drew McIntyre? Is also a heel? What happens? But that's the beauty. WrestleMania is a big fun event. And unlike every other form of entertainment or sport, they get an off season. Even TV shows get an off season. The season the season finale happens, or the season finale happens, and then you got 5 months to wait around. In pro wrestling, it's on to the next. It's what makes Raw very interesting coming up on Monday night. But overall, a good WrestleMania. Where would I put it in the pantheon of WrestleManias? I don't know. I think I need a few weeks to think about that. Let that marinate. But overall, fine show. Congratulations to all the Cody crybabies. You got your guy. He's the world champion. And now you're on the clock. When are you going to turn on him? That's the ultimate question. When are you going to turn on him? But overall, good show. Did you like the show, Jet? Yeah. You a fan? Yeah. All right. There you go. The kid's happy, then I'm happy. That's what. But he's annoyed we didn't see Austin either. Stone Cold needed to show up at WrestleMania 40. We didn't get him. And when the heck are they going to announce where WrestleMania 41 is? Well, where's that going to be? Minnesota? You can't do Minnesota. I do like the idea of these outdoor cold weather WrestleManias, though. I like when they put up the graphic that said like 58 degrees, and when Cody's coming into the ring and you see the smoke coming out of his mouth. I kind of like that. Let the weather play the elements of WrestleMania. Either way, overall good show. Now he's got to go to sleep, and I got to go to sleep. Thank you for watching this very special YouTube WFN live edition recapping WrestleMania 40.